Here at the district, our mission is to improve the protection of life and property from the impacts of flooding while also protecting the environment. In the early days in Clark County, our valley was filled with natural washes like these here in Summerlin. These washes help get floodwater from the west side of the valley east to Lake Mead. But as development moved through the area, a lot of those natural waterways were changed, creating potential flooding problems for residents. With the district's help, those washes can be stabilized to minimize the dangers. On today's show, we'll talk about the advantages of concrete versus natural channels. Before the district was created, the valley had experienced the problem of flooding for years. As the community developed, officials really didn't understand the flooding potential. When the district was created in the mid-1980s, we were tasked with managing the flood risk. But as Carrie Ann explains, how we do that isn't always easy.
The unique characteristics of our desert environment can make handling flood control issues a challenge. Thanks to the caliche, our soil doesn't absorb water, and that can create a lot of runoff. And as you're about to see, a lot of water traveling at such a high speed can be a lot to handle. The natural washes that flow through our valley provide a detailed look at the two main rules of stormwater runoff. Water always flows downhill and always takes the path of least resistance. As development grows, sometimes the natural washes that have been carved over centuries aren't big enough to handle the increase of runoff. When that happens, the floods have to occupy a bigger path, and one of the ways that happens is through erosion of the soil. Take a look at this video. It was shot in an apartment complex adjacent to the Flamingo Wash during the July 1999 storm. You can see the power of the water rushing through the area. Residents watched as the force of the water pulled down a chain-link fence and started eroding the parking lot below. Eventually, the carport collapsed and pavement below the car's front tires began to wash away. The unpredictable force of the water is why the district established some important guidelines that help dictate whether a wash can remain natural or whether it must be lined with something more reliable. While the guidelines have been in place for years, the district recently made a presentation on the policies to our board of directors.
If a wash can remain natural, we'll do that. We'll leave it natural. That would be the most cost-effective solution. We want our facilities to be dependable. We need to know that they'll work when we need them to work, which is during storm events. In fact, of the 560 miles of existing conveyance facilities shown on our master plan, about 322 miles of those are open channel. And of those 322 miles, about 132 miles, or approximately 41% of these channels, are natural and are intended to remain natural. The main goal is to improve the protection of life and property from flooding.
The ability of water to soak into the soils, there isn't a great capacity for that to happen. So when it does rain here, and when it rains here, it rains really intense. It happens in a really short time period, and it stays on the surface, and it has to get into channels and eventually out to Lake Mead.
We're standing just downstream of Upper Blue Diamond Detention Basin. The wash that drains into this basin looks similar to what we're standing in right here downstream. And in the past, 14,000 cubic feet per second of water was coming through this wash and carving what we're standing in today. With this detention basin up there, it's still getting there by the same way, a natural channel, and then it's slowed down and we're only letting 200 cubic feet per second come out of the basin.
Unfortunately, the Upper Blue Diamond Detention Basin is an unusual situation. Like Jill said, the detention basin is built literally in the middle of a natural waterway. In the outskirts of town, water flows into the basin. The basin can trap the water and slow it down, allowing for the natural channel downstream to safely handle the flow through the developed area of town. A lot of factors are looked at to determine if something like this is a realistic option for other parts of town.
The first thing we look at is the 100-year event. I mean, how much water is going to get to this location? And we have to consider planned development of what's there today and what's planned in the future. Then we look at how much room do we have to put this flow? Maybe development has already come in and we've only got so much right-of-way to channel that water through. We look at the lay of the land. What's the slope? It's the slope that determines how fast that water is going to go. And once we find out how fast it's going to travel, then we have to determine how we can maintain that section we have to work with.
Reliably managing the flow of water is the ultimate goal of any flood control facility. We need to know where the water is going and what areas could be impacted. In addition to concrete, there are several lining options that can help ensure the predictability of a channel. And while we'd like to leave everything as natural as possible, sometimes effects of an ill-performing natural wash can be felt through the entire community.
When you've got storm runoff coming in, it can carry huge rocks. It can down nice, well-established trees. It can take a lot of soil with it, as well as we've had cars being carried down our washes. That's the erosive force of the water.
And that's one of the challenges for flood control managers is how do you control that, And it's actually one of the kind of push and pulls with creating natural channels versus concrete channels, because one of the challenges with putting in concrete channels is concrete channels get water going really fast, but they're also really good structural and they can handle fast flows too. But natural channels can't necessarily handle fast flows just because there's a potential for erosion to occur also. So you have really two problems: the sediments that are being transported downstream and then the potential for adjacent structures that may be harmed too.
Once we figure out how much flow is going to come through here, we look at the slope. Can we flatten it to make it go slower? We sacrifice width if we do that. We have to go wider if we're going to slow the water down.
The Flamingo Wash is the channel that runs through the Miracle Mile Mobile Home Park. In 1999, photographers stood by as a mobile home was washed into the channel. Since then, the district has made a lot of improvements to the area. Those included concrete lining the channel. Concrete is the most durable channel lining. It can handle a lot of water in a smaller space. Because of that, the concrete-lined Flamingo Wash is now 60 feet wide. Had it been left unlined, it would have been about 1,300 feet across. That means 410 homes and 300 mobile homes would have needed to be relocated. To put that another way, I'm standing at the west bank of the Flamingo Wash near Mojave and Vegas Valley. If this wash were to remain unlined, the bank would have to be another 650 feet across. And that's just on this side. The east bank would need to be just as wide.
For the most part, on the upstream ends of the watershed, we've got these huge detention basins which can reduce the flow, pond the water back behind them, and leave what's downstream natural. In the urban area, we've already got development in there, and it's already encroached on where the water would have wanted to go in the past. So we're limited in the right-of-way, and that restricts us. So then we're left with our only option to handle the speed of the flow, and that is concrete.
At times, concrete may be the only option when it comes to reinforcing a wash through a developed neighborhood. But when the community plans ahead, sometimes a wash can be left natural while still ensuring the flood control benefits.
There are areas in the outlying parts of the valley that learned what was left behind at the inner core, like Summerlin. They've left a lot of natural drainage ways, incorporated it with their trails or their golf courses.
Well, Summerlin as a master plan is a community of magnitude. It's 22,500 acres, so it's huge. It's over 35 square miles. Howard Hughes acquired this land back in 1952, and it wasn't until the mid-'80s that it was decided that this land would make a perfect place for a large master plan community. Of course, the early planning for any master plan community has to do with infrastructure. Flood control is a very important, a crucial part of that, living here in the desert. Early on, we saw that we could preserve some of these beautiful dry riverbeds, these washes, but only if we built some structures in certain key areas that would detain the water or slow the water in any kind of a rain event. The real key issue is it has to be planned that way from the get-go.
So in summary, like every agency, we have limited resources to spend on flood control, so we strive to provide the most cost-effective solution possible to maximize those resources that we do receive.
The district's Drainage Design Manual helps instruct developers about the guidelines for the different types of wash lining. These guidelines can allow for some waterways to be kept as natural as possible while still keeping safety top of mind.
It was a great report, and I think that it was a necessary report to show to the public and to the board how our channels are built and why we do the things we do here at the Regional Flood Control District. We have to be concerned about several things: the flow of water, the speed of the water, and we always have to be prepared for that 100-year flood, and we always plan these facilities for that 100-year flood. Our number one goal is public safety, and we have to be focused on that, at the same time be very sensitive to the environment.
Flood control channels can actually be great features for a community. Oftentimes, walking trails and park amenities can be added so residents can fully enjoy the facility. The district's guidelines may be strict, but they help ensure residents can enjoy a facility without sacrificing their safety.
More than 130 miles of open channel will stay natural. And with some forethought, communities like Summerlin can turn these natural areas into places that residents can enjoy for years to come.
At a time when Southern Nevada needs to be water smart, did you know taking your car to a car wash saves not only gallons of water, but also traps all that dirt and other nasty pollutants? Washing your car in the driveway allows grease, soap, and oil to flow down the street into storm drains and onto Lake Mead, our primary source for drinking water. Do your part, wash smart, a clean car and a cleaner environment. This message brought to you by the Stormwater Quality Management Committee, a program of the Regional Flood Control District.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
While public safety is our number one priority, protecting our desert environment is also top of mind. Carrie Ann tells us more.
If you disturb an acre, you preserve an acre. That's the policy of the federal government when it comes to protecting the nation's waterways. At the district, construction to reinforce a natural channel is only done when it's absolutely necessary. But when those situations arise, a lot of thought is put into how the project will affect the environment.
The Clean Water Act is a federal law, and it established
Some risked their lives and jumped into action.
Took a boat and rescued the woman and the 5 kids from that trailer, and she was just literally holding them above the water.
6.5 inches of rain had fallen in less than an hour upstream in the mountains. Water was 6 feet over the top of bridges. The normally narrow, muddy river, a quarter-mile wide.
The flood was on us before we hardly knew it, and the TV went off, and my son went outside to see what was wrong, and he said, "Oh, Dad, come and look," and here come the water. It was just running down.
Hundreds were evacuated. 252 homes were damaged, as well as 25 businesses.
But it could have been worse. I mean, we can always replace this. We couldn't replace lives.
That was the miraculous part. No one died. Nevada Governor Bob List was soon on the scene.
Well, I'm making immediate request of the President to declare this as a disaster area, which would enable us to get some economic relief. It's apparent to me that it's badly needed. These people really had a personal catastrophe as well as an economic one.
Hundreds of cattle were swept to their deaths, and dairy operators had to confront a grim task.
3 pieces of heavy equipment. The hole will approximately be 6 to 8 foot deep and probably 100, 200 foot long, and we're going to bury them 6 foot under dirt.
A shock soon gave way to hope as residents dug out.
The County Public Works Department has spent $250,000 already in Overton, clearing streets, pumping out basements, and making minor repairs.
And volunteers arrived from nearby Las Vegas.
Thought we'd come down and help out the people that are washed away. We'd help them clean out their houses and stuff, so that they can at least find out what they can and can't save, and so that they can get on their feet again.
The district was created about 5 years after the Moapa Valley flood. Since then, we built 85 detention basins and more than 560 miles of channel and underground storm drain to protect Clark County residents.
See that clogged storm drain? Something like that, when it rains, will cause water to back up and flood our streets. Hello, Regional Flood Control District. I'd like to report a clogged storm drain. City and county employees are working hard to keep your storm drains clean. If you spot a clogged storm drain, call and report it.
Help protect the environment by keeping our drains and washes clean. Report clogged storm drains by calling 685-0000.
Hi, I'm Terry Fader. You know, living in the desert, you may not realize it, but 6 inches of water can knock you off your feet. I can knock you off your feet too, honey. And 18 inches of water can make a car float. You don't need root beer and ice cream to make a car float? This is serious, Vicky. It's flash flood season and people need to know the facts. The fact is, you can have a lot of fun in a car, but don't be stupid. Turn around, don't drown.
The National Weather Service and the Regional Flood Control District remind you to stay safe this flash flood season.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Welcome back. Our license plate billboard campaign is really popular with the community. Carrie Ann explains why the program is so successful.
Educating the public about the dangers of flash flooding is a top priority for the district's public information department. And while it's a serious message, the license plate billboards get the point across in a lighthearted yet memorable way.
Well, when you think about advertising, you think about selling a product. At the Regional Flood Control District, things are different. We think about education. We're trying to educate our citizens to the dangers of flash flooding. Our mission certainly is to protect people and property from floods, and as importantly, educate people to stay away from floods.
Well, the advertising campaign, it includes a broad mix of media. The lead medium throughout the years has been outdoor, and that's because it's our main driver reaching motorists. It also incorporates television, radio, print, online. The last few years we've actually incorporated some non-traditional ideas such as canvas bags and air fresheners that are just a unique way to increase our overall reach and frequency.
We created the license plate billboard program, which has been hugely successful. It's not a flood control district program, it's a community-wide program, and I think that has been critically important in promoting and the success of this program.
The license plate billboard contest was created in 2003. It's a program that gets the community involved in a serious message, while also getting a chance to express a little creativity. Every year, the media helps get the word out about the contest, and as a result, thousands of entries pour into the district's website. That makes judging the contest more difficult every year.
Our main objective is to come up with a slogan that advises people to not drive through flooded areas. It's a matter of having something that within 2 to 3 seconds, it clicks right in your mind, do not do this. Do not even attempt to drive through those flooded areas. The entries they're a lot of fun, and I think that it is exciting. And of course, everyone always thinks they have the best idea. That's the toughest part about the contest. There are so many great ideas, and depending on who you are and I guess experiences in your life, something something relates or something clicks in your mind.
You know, when you look at over the past few years, the tens of thousands of submittals, it's amazing how creative people can be. One of the things that has always caught my attention is the Sunk, I-M-S-U-N-K, and the billboard has this gentleman sitting on top of the car with the appearance of floating away, and the Sunk. That stays with you, and it's those type of dramatic visuals and then the little caption below, and they've been so creative that message is something that when people see, it stays with them.
I know a lot of people think Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Strip, but we have a community that our residents are so involved and are so concerned about the betterment of our city, and it's a fun and inventive way of making flood safety and the future of our community good and having fun while doing it. So I think that that's what makes it successful.
This year, the license plate Billboard Contest brought in more than 2,900 English entries and nearly 450 entries in Spanish. This year's English winner was Cruz Bonilla with his entry, Misjudged. The top prize in Spanish went to Samantha Gracia, whose entry was Ay Caramba. Samantha is the youngest resident to ever win the Billboard Contest.
Born and raised in Vegas, I've noticed that, the issues about flash flooding, people don't think about it. They just want to get it over with, go to work, pick up their kids, but they don't think about the facts that they can risk their lives.
I had friends that actually go into streams and washes, and they kind of misjudge it, and so do people when they go to the flood areas. They misjudge how fast or how deep those things can get.
We ask the winners to come down and be recognized by the board, and they are able to then be seen by the general public. We've been fortunate the last few years to have families come down, and the husband and the wife and the children, and it's time to celebrate. It's just a little snapshot away from board business to thank the community, especially the winners, but thank the community as a whole in participating in this program.
We have a fun community. I think that the residents of Las Vegas are interactive, and they like to be involved in the betterment of our community. And really, it was exciting to see an 18-year-old win the contest, because I think in most of our minds, you think an 18-year-old normally wouldn't take the time out to enter a flood safety contest. But that was an exciting moment, I think, for all of us to think that we're getting in the minds of younger generations, and that's going to benefit everybody in our community in the long run.
The contest runs every year for the first 3 weeks of July. Ultimately, the purpose of the license plate Billboard Contest is to get residents thinking about flood safety right at the beginning of flash flood season.
Thanks, Carrie Ann. We are constantly impressed with the really creative entries we get every year. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Flood Channel. Remember to log onto our website at regionalflood.org with your questions and comments. You can also find us on Facebook. For all of us here at the Flood Channel, I'm Betty Hollister, and remember to always be flood safe.